Welcome to Break the Cycle with Bethany Dotson, the podcast for high achieving professional women who struggle with codependency, attracting emotionally unavailable partners, and who repeat dysfunctional patterns in love. I'm your host, Bethany Dotson, and if you want to learn more about how to break your cycle in love, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and be the first to know when a new episode drops. I'll see you inside.
Hey, everybody. Today, I want to talk about the question: are you the commitment phobe in your relationship history? And I specifically want to talk about how unhealed trauma can create your own commitment issues and how those commitment issues are at this moment in time still keeping you locked in a cycle of blocking healthy relationships, and not just blocking healthy relationships, but keeping you in a pattern of people pleasing, a pattern of overwhelm, a pattern of settling. I first want to talk about some of the mistakes and just a blanket general statement before I dive into that. I want to say that it can be really easy to beat yourself up and feel like a failure and even blame yourself for getting into a dysfunctional relationship or staying too long with a narcissistic partner. So I want to preface all of this by saying that getting into these types of relationships and abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, whatever the case may be, is never your fault. It's never your fault. However, if we want to change that pattern, we have to take ownership. And sometimes the same trauma patterns that cause people to get into codependent, toxic relationships are also the same patterns that block them from healing. I want to talk about a couple of things that you may be doing that could be keeping you commitment phobic. And the first one is what I call shame cover ups. So, shame cover ups might look like telling people that you're worthy of a healthy relationship, or telling yourself, or telling your therapist, telling your friends, you're worthy of a healthy relationship, your family. But then looking at your life and not having any healthy romantic relationships in the past or at the current moment. So telling yourself you're worthy, and I see this a lot when I speak with people. When telling yourself that you're worthy is a logical understanding or a logical declaration. You may certainly believe that you're worthy consciously up here in your mind. But if you're telling yourself that you're worthy, but then at the same time secretly questioning whether or not you'll be able to trust yourself in the future, or whether or not you'll ever have a healthy relationship, or you spend the other 90% of your day ruminating about why you didn't leave your last person sooner, or are you going to wind up alone, that emotional state that negates what you're saying. So you can tell yourself, I know I'm worthy. But really, when I find that people say that they are worthy and they're not really doing anything about it, the statement, I am worthy, is really something that they're doing to help themselves feel better and cover up their shame for not having made better choices in the past. And often they're still not really making better choices in the present moment. So being aware of how you are using cover ups to avoid feeling the pain or the reality. I'm going to say the word reality of never having a great relationship. The other shame cover up that I hear a lot is, I'm okay if I never have a relationship again. And it's meant to be, it will be, if God wants me to have somebody, I will have somebody. And these statements are certainly understandable when you've had bad relationships and when you've been betrayed or burned. But if you are 90% of the time believing that I don't need a relationship, I'm fine without it, or I want it, but I don't really need it, you're in what's called you're on the fence. You're not fully committed to really going for it. And if you've had unhealthy relationships for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or you've had unfulfilling relationships where you've settled in some way. Maybe you stayed with somebody that you weren't really attracted to. I hear this a lot too. I stayed with them because I thought it was a safe choice, but I didn't really feel a spark. We just were friends and that was it. If you've been settling, getting into unfulfilling relationships, staying too long with emotionally abusive people, and you're like, "Oh, I really don't know." And now you're like, "I don't really know if I want a healthy relationship, or I don't know if I could go either way. I'm not." It's understandable to say that, but you're still, in a sense, avoiding really going for it. And if you've had a past of settling, you weren't really going for it then. And a lot of people remain commitment phobic when they ignore red flags because they're ignoring themselves. They're ignoring their intuition. And if you can't remain committed to yourself and what you really want, you're not going to attract somebody that's going to remain committed to you because you essentially continue to abandon yourself and what you really want in order to please somebody else. And so that's the first mistake that I often see people making when they've been out of a relationship or a marriage and they're on the road to recovery and they want to have a healthy relationship in the future. The first mistake that I see people doing is what I call shame cover-ups. No, I know I'm worthy. I know I'm worthy, but they haven't had any concrete evidence in their relationship choices that show that they're actually truly subconsciously believing that they're worthy. It's a nice statement to say on the surface, but somewhere deeper in their psychology, they're not believing that. The other shame cover up that I hear a lot is I'm good either way. I could have a relationship, right? I could take it or leave it. How many times did you say in a bad relationship, I hope it gets better. The red flags are getting bigger and bigger. The behavior is getting worse and worse. Our fights are getting more intense, but I hope it gets better. So it's often the same commitment issues that we have inside of a relationship that cause us to perpetuate that even when we're out of a relationship. So that's the first mistake that I see people saying is shame cover ups, covering up their shame by the language that they're using. So the second biggest mistake that I see people making, this is probably the largest, is they're not truly addressing their complex trauma. They might be reading a lot, they might be doing a lot of therapy, or they may have even worked with other life coaches, maybe not specifically on relationship issues. They're doing a lot of logical work to better understand their behavior and why they're attracting what they're attracting and piecing it to, oh, I'm doing this because of my childhood. And that's great. I don't want to say that's bad. It's really good to have a logical understanding and to logically understand why. But I want to highlight that understanding why logically does not heal a pattern that is rooted in your subconscious mind and also a pattern, an emotional pattern that's stored in your nervous system. So, a lot of times, people who have complex trauma have difficulty with boundaries. They're people pleasers. They want to be liked. They're fearful of abandonment. They try to avoid that at all costs. Therefore, they people please. They're fearful of rejection. They people please, or they stay too long in unfulfilling scenarios, losing themselves in the process. And all of that behavior creates a feeling of overwhelm or anxiousness or doubt or mistrust. And over time, living in doubt or mistrust or feeling anxious and feel like you're overwhelmed and spread too thin becomes your emotional home. And a lot of people get into therapy or they get into reading, and that only addresses, they get some logical awareness, but it's not deep enough healing to actually break their body's addiction to living in overwhelm. And when you have trauma, trauma is stored in your nervous system. This is what the research shows, at least over the last 10 years, at least. And when we talk about it, we're only addressing like 10%. whereas the other 90% of us keeps getting into the same scenarios. And this is because subconscious beliefs, you might verbally say, I'm worthy, but subconsciously you don't believe you're worthy. And so whenever you don't believe you're worthy, or whenever you have unhealed trauma from your past, that is always going to win at the end of the day until you properly heal your complex trauma. The other mistake that I see people healing or getting research or gathering information on their pattern or talking about the pattern, but they're not actually doing evidence based methods consistently to rewire their brain and their nervous system. The other trap that I see people falling into is that they don't get any professional help. Or they may have had professional help in the past. This is also another big one. They've had a lot of therapy in the past, but they continue to struggle with daily anxiety. They continue to struggle with bad relationships. And then they feel defeated. They feel like it's never going to get better. There has to be something wrong with me because I did all of this therapy, I did all this work, and I'm still doing it. So I don't even know if it's possible to fully overcome this pattern. And that is a death sentence because it's really easy to stay in that zone of nothing is really going to work for me, or it's I've tried everything, I keep doing the same thing. Clearly, I guess I'm not meant to have a great relationship. I guess I'm just supposed to stay single. I guess I'm supposed to be lonely. It's easy to write that story. And if you write that story, that's unfortunately where you're going to stay. Also, not getting professional help can be a byproduct of your own trust issues. So, people with complex trauma tend to they might get into therapy, but they might not ever truly like their therapist. They might not feel completely safe in the therapeutic setting. And it can be difficult for people with complex trauma to stick with something for a prolonged period of time. So, number one, the number two mistake, not properly addressing your complex trauma, not using evidence based methods to repattern your brain and your nervous system and make better choices in relationships. Learn how to speak up, learn how to communicate clearly, learn how to feel confident every day, learn how to prioritize your own needs first, learn how to set boundaries. And the second thing with not properly healing your complex trauma is just not getting any professional outside support at all, thinking you can do it on your own. Hyper independence is a sign of people who have a lot of trust issues. They don't feel safe in any kind of relational scenario, including in a therapeutic one, because they don't trust other people inherently. So that's the second mistake that I wanted to share with you. And like a third thing that you might be doing that's keeping you commitment phobic is look at other areas of your life. So I often work with women who not only get into unhealthy relationships, but they also are codependent and people pleasing at work. They stretch themselves too thin. They become a workaholic. They're constantly putting out fires and feeling very undervalued and underappreciated in their role. And this is because they aren't speaking up clearly, they're not communicating clearly. They are that pattern of I need to do more, I need to overachieve so you see I'm valuable so that you like me starts to come into play there. And when you are feeling unfulfilled generally in other areas of your life, like your career, your home life, maybe in friendship scenarios, when you're feeling unfulfilled, your emotional home is going to be one that's in a state of lack, or it's going to be in a state of not enoughness. Like things just aren't going right. And unfortunately, a lot of people date from that emotional home. And then they feel temporarily for a moment, they meet somebody, they feel a spark with that person, there's a lot of chemistry, and they feel elated. And that person that they meet for a moment gives them a peak experience. It gets them out of their lack mindset and their kind of meh, the problems that they're experiencing in their life, their unfulfillment in other life areas. But because they themselves have been living in a state of unfulfillment, They ultimately attract partners who are also in a state of unfulfillment and who are ultimately unavailable on some level. And you are always going to attract what you are, not what you want. So if you find that you are getting people who cannot commit to you because of their own unavailability, their own secret addiction issues, their own narcissistic behavior, and they can't fully emotionally commit to you, you have to look at how you are emotionally unavailable and how you are avoidant or fearful of true emotional intimacy and that level of commitment yourself. Because if you have trauma from your past, rejection, abandonment wounds, that is going to continue playing out in your choices, not just in your relationships, but most often at in your work environment. People who revert to workaholism, or on paper they're successful, they have a great career, maybe they're a great business owner. Those people tend to be overachievers. And it's shown in research that people who are overachievers as adults usually felt insignificant as a child, or they didn't feel enough as a child, or they had some type of emotional neglect or trauma in their childhood. And they now feel that they have to prove themselves to feel valuable, to feel like they're worthy. And that pattern of proving yourself to feel like you're worthy is a perfect match for somebody who is going to keep moving the goal line down the yard and not ever give you what you want. Just to quickly recap, signs that you might have your own commitment issues, signs that you're the commitment phobe. Number one, you're using shame cover ups and you're not fully addressing the reality of your scenario or your choices. You're not fully accepting responsibility for your choices. You might be saying, I'm worth it, but then going out and settling for emotionally unavailable people, or buying into potential, buying into what you want the relationship to be like versus what's really unfolding in front of you. You might be saying things like, yeah, I'm good if I never have a great, I don't, if God wants me to have somebody, then I'll have somebody. You're in this lackadaisical, apathetic mindset. And that's not going to get you where you want to go either. That's not going to produce, if you're watching this or if you followed my work, as on some level, most people do want to have a healthy relationship, but the stories that they put act like barbed wire and roadblocks from them having that experience. So if you're saying things like, if it happens, you have to look at that. Is that a very committed statement? Or is that somebody who's holding back because she's truly afraid of getting hurt again? Second thing, the mistake that I see is you're not healing your complex trauma. You're not using trauma evidence based methods that are designed to reprogram your belief systems, reprogram your habits of people pleasing and losing yourself in another person, overstepping your boundaries, letting people overstep their boundaries with you. So you need to be using and working with somebody who specializes in that type of recovery, and not only addressing it on the surface. Addressing it on the surface looks like you're researching the narcissist, you're researching your own codependency. It's not bad to do that, but in my experience, after doing this for nearly a decade, that doesn't work. I see people falling into the same traps over and over again because they're just addressing the issue on the surface, but they're not doing deeper work in their psychology or in their nervous system to repattern that and then take action on a consistent basis to get better results. And then not investing in help at all, thinking you can do it on your own is another mistake that I see. So we always have our own blind spots, and it can be invaluable to have somebody that you trust that is able to guide you past your blind spots and get you where you want to go. So that's number two, not addressing your complex trauma. The other mistake that I see people doing that keeps them commitment phobic is staying other areas of their life are unfulfilled. They're not addressing the unfulfillment in work and how they're show waking up every single day. They're not fully addressing that and healing that part. And they're starting their dating journey from a place of inherently feeling lack or not fulfilled in their own life, or not enough in some way, or they're still in doubt, and they start their dating journey from that place. They've got a lot of logical information. They've done some work on themselves, but on some level, they're still not feeling fulfilled. They still might be a workaholic. They still might be living in overwhelm every single day. And that is not a place to create a healthy relationship from. Sure, we all have stressors and we all have challenges in our lives. But if 90% of your waking day is spent feeling like you're putting out fires, or you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, or you're saying yes to everybody, you could have zero time for yourself, and you just feel stuck, that is not the place to attract a healthy relationship. You're going to get the same type of pattern that you've been getting. So you have to, first and foremost, make the decision that you want to get uncomfortable and change. It can be very seductive and easy to say, I'm never going to date again. Relationships aren't worth it for me. And that's a fear based choice. And if you want to make that choice, that's fine. But you have to get to, if you truly want to change and you truly want to have healthy relationships, starting with the one with yourself, you have to make the decision to go for it. And if you've never had a healthy relationship before, you weren't really going for it then either. So you spent a lot of your time settling. And you have to make the decision first that you're never ever going to settle again. Number two, you need to be working with an expert and a guide, a mentor, a professional who can give you the roadmap and help you get past the forest for the trees and see the blind spots that you're making. We can only do so much work on ourselves. It's been shown in research that trauma is healed in relationships. It's healed in relationship settings. And the first relationship setting that often takes place is in a therapeutic setting. However, you need to be working with somebody who is a trauma informed specialist and who does use research backed methods. And talk therapy, while it's very beneficial in many ways, tends to keep complex trauma survivors stuck in that pattern because they're just addressing it on the surface and not in their nervous system where that trauma is stored. So you need to be working with a professional. And I said this yesterday in my client group call, having being in a community of other people, of other women who are in the same boat and who are also going for it can be invaluable. A lot of people tell me they talk to their friends about dating, they talk to friends about their love lives, and their friends are often complaining about how shitty dating is, or their friends are struggling in their careers, or their friends are burnout and overwhelmed too, and they commiserate over their misery together. And they don't really get anywhere. They don't really change anything. And so if you want to change, there's a famous saying that you are the sum total of the five closest people you surround yourself with. If you want to change and make some significant progress, you need to be around people who are doing that too. And that's exactly what we do in Break the Cycle. We give you, number one, evidence based methods for healing complex trauma. And we give you a protocol to do that every day. It's been shown in neuroscience that it takes 66 days on average to unwire a neurological pattern in your brain and start to reprogram that to healthier behavior and get that new programming at the beginning stages of being an automatic habit. So, meaning you don't even think about doing it anymore. It just becomes like your natural new normal. So, we give you the protocol to do that, to reprogram you out of people pleasing and codependency. We give you things like specific guided body inquiries, trauma sensitive yoga, specific meditations, mindfulness work. A lot of our work is rooted in mindfulness because when you have trauma, you are more focused on your environment and what's going on out here and reacting to that, reacting to perceived threats, reacting to people's reactions, making up negative meanings about their reactions. And you lose the ability to turn your focus inward and start truly trusting yourself and listening to yourself. And we also give you the container of like-minded women that are on the same road. They're healing their trauma. They're saying yes to themselves. And again, if you lack that in your environment now, maybe your friends are bitching about online dating, or all of your friends are married and you feel like the black sheep because you just got out of your fourth divorce, it can be invaluable to be around people who are also on that healing journey. And then most importantly, you have to put yourself in scenarios in your life that are going to cause you to feel rejected. And this is one of the things that we also do. We give our clients a protocol every single day to repattern themselves, reprogram their nervous system, get out of that trauma response, get out of people pleasing, overwhelming anxiety. And then we give them things to do every week that are going to put them into places like dating, communicating at work, communicating with friends and family, that are going to put them in the hot seats of setting a boundary, communicating vulnerably, and feeling possibly rejected in that scenario. And it is only when you truly put yourself in places where you can feel rejection, possibly where you're at risk for that, and you learn how to overcome that in a healthy way, that you really start changing. So you have to be first doing trauma informed work and then taking risks in your life, in relationship scenarios that are going to give you the practice to master your skills of vulnerability, communicating clearly, setting boundaries, not people pleasing, not feeling guilty, all those things. And when you get masterful at that, becomes an automatic unconscious habit, and that becomes your new normal. So it's a lot easier when you have a guide and you have a roadmap and you have a community of women that are on the same journey as you. And it can be really challenging when you feel like an outsider or a loner and you've been doing a lot of therapy, you've been doing a lot of reading, but you still feel stuck. If you're a professional woman, if you're single, if you keep getting into the same pattern in your love life, you keep meeting unavailable people, you keep staying too long, you keep thinking about what's wrong with me, and you're ready to stop doing that, and you're ready to step out of your comfort zone on a daily basis. You're ready to see some significant changes, not just, oh, I got it's working, or you're ready to see lasting changes and you're ready to create mastery. Then I invite you to book a free breakthrough call. You can go to bethanydotson.com/talk. And we're going to get you very clear on what's not working in your love life and probably your own commitment issues. Okay. And we're going to also get you very clear on what it is that you want, how you want to feel every day emotionally. Maybe you're just getting out of a narcissistic relationship. Dating is not at all on your radar right now. Fine. You just want to feel confident in yourself. You want to wake up feeling happy every day. You want to stop ruminating about your ex. You want to never do this again. Great. If you've been out of the relationship for a while and you're ready to start dating, but you don't trust yourself, great. We can help with that as well. We'll get you very clear on what it is that you want. And if during that conversation, we feel confident we can help you get from point A to point B, we'll talk about the work, what that looks like, give you the exact steps you're going to need to implement in order to get from point A to point B. So bethanydotson.com/talk if you want to have an honest conversation. And for a lot of people, even if they don't end up working with us, they don't forget the conversation because one conversation can truly change your life. And if you're ready to change your life, if you're ready to have healthy relationships, if you're tired of telling yourself, I hope one day it gets better, or I hope one day I meet a great partner, but nothing is actually changing, then we'd like to speak to you. bethanydotson.com/talk. Have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to today's show. A brand new episode drops each week. Be sure to click and subscribe. And remember, healing trauma, codependency, and your lifelong pattern in love does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance and evidence-based methods. And I've helped hundreds of incredible women from all over the country heal betrayal trauma and reclaim their confidence while falling wildly in love with their own lives and attracting healthy relationships. If you like what you heard today and you want to see if you're fit to work with us, go to bethanydotson.com/talk. That's bethanydotson.com/talk and book a call to speak with us today. We'll get on the phone for about 45 minutes and get you crystal clear on 3 things. The real reason you keep attracting dysfunctional relationships even if you know better or even if you've done tons of work on yourself. What you really want in a relationship, how you want to feel emotionally every single day in your life, and what lifestyle changes you want to make. And then number 3, the exact strategy you need to be using to get there. Again, healing trust issues, codependency, and a lifelong pattern does not happen without expert guidance. We've helped hundreds of women across the country heal complex trauma, codependency, and have the healthiest relationships ever, both with themselves and with others. Go to bethanydotson.com/talk to book your call today. I'll see you on the next episode.